Okay, folks, we had to hop on real quick to give you an update on Operation Epic Failure, which is President Trump's foray into Iran, which is going terribly right now. So, look, man, you hear the rhetoric coming out of the White House in Washington right now. It sounds like an action movie. It sounds like we just walked in there, we flipped the switch, and completely turned off the enemy. Look, just Wednesday, like 48 hours ago, President Trump got on primetime television and tells the American people, quote, they have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force. End quote. 100% annihilated. That is what he said. But you look at the realities of Operation Epic Failure, and on the ground today, we're seeing a completely different universe. It's wild. The disconnect between the podium and the battlefield right now is staggering. I'm looking at the defense monitoring reports from the last 48 hours, and the skies over Iran are literally raining American metal. And it is not a clear airspace at all. It is highly contested and heavily defended, and the human and financial toll is it's just brutal, quite frankly. Now, let's talk about the human cost first, because that's the most important thing. We just had an F-15E Strike Eagle blasted out of the skies over central Iran. This isn't a drone. This is a crewed top-tier fighter jet. And now they've managed to pull one of the crew members out, which is a miracle. But the second airman is currently missing in action, stranded in hostile territory. Think about the psychological weight of that. Think about you've got a massive, perilous combat search and rescue mission going on right now, and the guy is flying, and the guys flying in to get him. They are also flying straight into a meat grinder. We had two HH-60G Pave Hawk helicopters. Those are the rescue birds. They went in there to do the extraction, and they got chewed up by small arms fires. Both choppers were damaged. Crew members were wounded, just trying to save one of their brothers in arms. And it doesn't stop there. Today also, there was an A-10 Warthog, literally a flying tank. They go, brrrr. It got shot down over the Persian Gulf. The pilot managed to ride that damaged bird all the way to Kuwaiti airspace, punched out, and was rescued. But the fact that we are taking down A-10s and A-15s, that means those annihilated air defenses are still very, very real, and they are lethal. We saw just last week an F-A-18 Hornet was nearly struck. We saw a couple weeks ago an F-35 was nearly struck by a heat-seeking missile. These were small man pads, so they have about 3 to 5 pound warhead, so that wasn't enough to take down those planes. It's going to be interesting to find out what took down that Warthog today and what took down that F-15 today. But that's not even getting to the real financial hemorrhaging that we're seeing. And this part is just bonkers. So Iran is supposedly non-existent air defense network just swatted down at least 3 more MQ-9 Reapers out of the sky near Isfahan just this week. Do you know how much a Reaper cost? We're talking about close to $30 million each. And we've lost 17 of those during this conflict. 17. That's nearly $500 million in drone attrition alone. Also, there was reportedly some smaller U.S.-made Lucas drones. Those are the low-cost drones. They're a copy of the Iranian Shahed, also being used by Russia against Ukraine. They're ubiquitous. In Iran, they cost as little as $10,000 to $20,000 to build. The U.S. versions have higher-end technology, so we're talking about $35,000 to $50,000 per drone. But we don't even know the number of those that have been shot down by Iranian air defenses. So when you add that up, the total estimated cost of U.S. aircraft lost just in the last 48 hours is close to $1.2 billion. $1.2 billion in 48 hours since Donald Trump said their air defenses were completely and totally annihilated. So we talk about $1.2 billion being vaporized, but more importantly, we have the pilots taking hits, crews bleeding in helicopters, and American service members sitting there waiting to be rescued, and it's costing us blood to execute this mission. So when politicians get on TV and tell you the skies are clear and the enemy is 100% defanged, you got to look at the billion-dollar debris field. You got to look at the wounded rescue crews. You got to look at the reality. It's gritty. It's terrifying. It demands that we be honest about what we are asking these men and women to do, because right now the political narrative is writing checks and that the reality on the ground is not cashing. We are now up to 13 service members killed, perhaps 14, depending on whether or not the second officer in the F-15 survived. And with the Wizzo, you have the pilot, you have the weapons systems operator Wizzo. I believe the pilot was the one who was rescued. We're still trying to find out the fate of the Wizzo. So we're at between 13 and 14 dead in this war. Casualty numbers, as in the numbers wounded, we are not getting accurate numbers out of the Pentagon, but we do know it's already between 300 and 500 people have been wounded during the course of this war. Not to mention, last week we had 2 E-3 Sentries, the early warning, the AWACS platforms. We had 1 destroyed and 1 damaged. We're flying one from Missouri to the in theater now to replace that capability. We also remember we had the 2 KC-130s, 135s colliding. One of them went down, taking the entire crew with it. Another one was damaged. In that same strike that destroyed the E-3 Sentries, I believe 5 more KC-130s were damaged or destroyed in that attack. There was another attack earlier in the war where 7 more KC-135s were damaged or destroyed by Iranian fire. So we are looking at an attrition rate in American aircraft that's going to take decades to replace. We all remember in the opening stages of the war, 3 F-15s were shot down by Kuwaiti forces in friendly fire incidents. I mean, we are burning through billions of dollars a day during the course of this war with absolutely no clear exit strategy. And it's clear that that Iran, a recent intelligence report that came out earlier today says that as much as 50% of their missile capabilities are still functional right now. And we're even seeing video of America striking Iranian missile bases, them going in with crews and bulldozers, digging them out, and those things being back online within a day or two. We're not going to bomb our way out of this conflict, and we're seeing American casualty numbers rise. We're seeing the cost of this war rise. There's still no congressional authorization around this. And not to mention, we still have absolutely no idea what the end goal of this is. It can't be regime change because you're not going to get quote unquote regime change without ground troops. It's just never going to happen. And even the concept of regime change. Remember, we already did regime change in Iran once. The CIA and the and the British intelligence got together and overthrew the democratically elected government in Iran and then put in place the Shah of Iran. That's why we had the 1979 Iranian Revolution. They were revolting against the last time we did regime change. So the idea that we're going to come in 50 years later and change the regime again, it's just a ridiculous concept. I've seen some ideas that we're going to fly in special forces to seize the nearly ton of highly enriched and medium enriched nuclear materials and somehow smuggle those out of the country. We're not talking about just picking up Maduro and Venezuela and pulling him out in a couple minutes. This will be a multi-day long operation, bringing in heavy cargo airplanes that can bring in the type of heavy machinery that it would take to dig out some of that fissile material from places like, from some of the underground nuclear program bases. So we're talking about bringing in C-5 Galaxies, C-17 Globemasters, at a minimum C-130s. They've even talked about building a temporary runway in Iran in order to try to get this stuff out of here. It's like they play Call of Duty and then start huffing glue and coming up with these ideas. That's never going to happen. So until we have realistic political leadership, until we have realistic goals for this military operation, we will continue to see this attrition rate increase. And even as President Trump said, we'll be wrapping up in a week or two. If we wrap up this war in a week or two, America's in a weaker position. This pulling out now will make pulling out from Afghanistan after 20 years look like a well-executed military operation. And I remind everyone that that Afghanistan pullout was also negotiated by President Trump. In Doha, Mike Pompeo met with the Taliban and negotiated that withdrawal from Afghanistan. That was not on Joe Biden. That was a operation planned by Trump before Joe Biden even got into office, and that's what we were left with. And now we're in a situation where we will have an even worse outcome if we just pull out and cut and run directly from Iran right now. Iran will be able to essentially charge transit fees to every single tanker coming out of the Straits of Hormuz. You will turn that into a canal. They're already making nearly $2 million per tanker. You'll be seeing them pulling in about $2.8 billion per month if they are able to turn the Straits of Hormuz into their own canal. That's more money than the Obama nuclear deal ever would have given Iran. Think about what that adds to it over the course of a year, over the course of a decade, if that takes place. Additionally, it tells every single enemy of America, all you have to do is interfere with global petrol flows, and you will be able to bend America backwards. So the same way that China has to deal with the Malacca dilemma, where the majority of their energy comes through the Straits of Malacca in order to reach mainland China, and the U.S. Navy can blockade that in the case of war. Well, now China understands, well, we just need to build a big enough Navy and then work with the Iranians and work with the Houthis to ensure that they are allies of ours. And if we ever go to war, try to invade Taiwan, well, then we'll have Iran shut off the Straits of Hormuz to Western traffic, because we're seeing a selective closing right now, so China can make sure they still get their materials. We can have the Houthis shut off the Red Sea, shut off the Suez Canal, shut off the Bab el-Mandab Straits, and then they have America in their own version of the Malacca dilemma. So Trump has put us in a exceedingly dangerous spot that's going to take more than simply throwing your hands up in the air, cutting and running, and saying I won and leaving means. We're going to end up leaving Iran in a stronger position with a more hardline government than ever before. The government that negotiated the Iran nuclear deal was the moderate form of the Iranian regime. They were the ones who were willing to come to the table in 2014, 2015. They were the ones willing to subject themselves to international inspectors, to limits on the ability to enrich uranium. And within a couple years of them signing that deal, President Trump tore it up with absolutely no plan to replace it. Iran began enriching uranium again, putting them closer to nuclear weapons. This is all a situation that was created by Trump and Netanyahu and Lindsey Graham and the war hawks out there, because we had a nuclear deal in place that would have stopped this from ever happening. We simply decided that we were not going to use it. And now how Trump gets out of the situation, I think, is unknown for all mankind, because he's falling deeper into the escalation trap. And every day that goes by that he appears to be impotent in the face of Iran, more and more power accretes to the Iranian regime, which will, after this war, turn them into a regional superpower. And we're pumping $1 or $2 billion into their economy every single month through transit fees in the Straits of Hormuz. If every single Gulf nation now understands that not even the United States of America can protect them in the face of Iran, and now they have to come to diplomatic agreements with them, that makes Iran the new superpower. And when Israel realizes that even with the complete help of the United States government, with 2 straight months of bombing tens of thousands of targets, the Iranian regime still will stay in place and they will still fund their proxy network, and now they have more money than ever. Well, now you've turned Iran from a power in the region to the regional superpower. So I'm interested to see, in the post-mortem of all this, what the plan was going in and whose plan it was and how exactly we get ourselves out of this. But right now, as we are here today, there are no good answers. There are no good solutions. And the only thing we can do is hope that the President of the United States has more wisdom than he is showing publicly. All right, that's it for today. Make sure you like and subscribe. You got to do all the YouTube stuff, do Facebook stuff, the TikTok stuff, do all that stuff. You guys know how the internet works, and we'll be back more often.